Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the live stream today. We have 3 articles in the description section of this segment that you should look at if you want to find out what we're talking about. And the first article we'll get to in a second. First and foremost, thank you to Eric, H526, and Luke for being the 2 greatest moderators in all of YouTube. To my super chat, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to interact with me or ask me, questions on this topic or discussion or, give and convey and communicate your vantage point, the super chat, it would be greatly appreciated. And it's something that I'm just so thankful for. And ladies and gentlemen, just click on the description section of this segment. You can look at the Associated Press. Trump ally in Pennsylvania raises audit plan. Following in the footsteps of Arizona's Senate Republicans. Pennsylvania Republican-controlled Senate is considering an investigation into how last November was conducted a quest fueled by former President Donald Trump's baseless claims that misconduct was behind his loss in the battleground state. Completely baseless. That is correct, and also a misleading statement to an extent, because the accusations and allegations against Trump pertaining to Russia, him working with Russia, were baseless also. If you want to talk about claims that were based on that didn't have direct evidence. Ebrey, thanks for doing the work. Ebrey, thank you. Ebrey, thank you so very much. Lori Burns, thank you, Lori. Thank you, Lori. Lori and Ebrey, thank you so very much. So, Lori and Ebrey, the interesting thing is when you look at the way articles were written pertaining to Trump and Russia, anything was possible, and any claim was rooted in some kind of either circumstantial evidence or high confidence. They made claims based on a Steele dossier that was considered raw intelligence. They wouldn't let it go. They kept saying it was corroborated. Nothing could be further from the truth. Trump never worked with Russia. So this is an example of journalists or journalism. Journalism today is skewed towards the Democratic Party. You cannot say that Trump's claims are baseless after 4 years of accusing him of working with the Kremlin without any direct evidence, and simply with high to moderate confidence assessments. So, if you're going to... So thank you again, Ebrey and Lori Burns. If you're going to accuse Trump of working alongside Russia, and you're going to publish articles that talk about how he could have done this or that based on speculation and hearsay and gossip, and then you completely disregard Trump's allegations as utterly baseless while leveling the same allegations against Republicans in Arizona. So that's the interesting thing. They're leveling the same types of allegations. Against Republicans in Arizona, as Trump has leveled against them. That's the thing. That's the interesting dynamic here. The interesting dynamic is the following. They disregard any suspicion. They disregard any suspicion when it comes to any distrust or speculation pertaining to official results. So when it's George Rivera Jr. I took a hiatus from the tube. I wanted to leave, but you dragged me back. It's like the Godfather. George Rivera Jr. Thank you so very much, George Rivera Jr. I hope all is well. Teclees, son of great staff. Testa, hello. Testa, thank you so very much. Just for the algorithm, I have to just make sure that I'm covered. But thank you so very much, George Rivera Jr. Thank you so much, George Rivera Jr. I hope all is well. I hope you had a great July 4th. And thank you so much as always. Thank you so much as always. Testa, hello. Hello, thank you. Lori Burns, do you think Congress will impeach Trump? Is that even possible? I think that they can technically try to impeach him again. I think that they tried to impeach him right before he left. I think it's technically possible as a resolution, some kind of resolution against Trump. Lori, I think they can impeach Trump through the same type of resolution because that's who they are. They don't care about mayhem and chaos that their words possibly cause. They completely disregard their role in 4 to 5 months of absolute chaos and mayhem that led to $1 to $2 billion in property damage, according to Wikipedia. So, to answer your question, Lori, I think that's possible. Anything's possible. Look, the infrastructure bill that they're working on won't even increase gross domestic product. It won't even help the economy substantially. The best estimates is that it barely helps the economy. Those are the best estimates. That it barely helps the economy. So they don't have much to talk about. They really don't have much to they really don't have much to show for them being in the House of Representatives, the Senate, and the presidency. So Lori, George Rivera Jr., and Testa, and everyone here, thank you so very, very much. George, it's good to see you, and everybody here as always. Ebre, thank you so much. They can probably try to do that, but see, you're going to have more of these recounts, and you're going to have more of these investigations, because Democrats spent 4 years sowing distrust. Trump does not trust the official numbers. He does not, from Trump's perspective, he doesn't think Prince Valium got that many people. I'll leave it at that. President Trump does not think that Father Time, Prince Valium, Cornflakes, was able to defeat him. Now, you can look at Pennsylvania and you can look at Arizona, and there are news reports from November and December of last year that H.A. Goodman is not correlating to any widespread misconduct at all, and if anyone accuses me of that, you'll have to contend with Bernard Sanders. But from Trump's perspective, they're saying, from Trump's perspective, he's looking at certain breaches or thefts. It could be of storage equipment or hard drives that are documented within reputable publications. Okay, I'm not going to talk about it, but you can look at a Forbes article. I'm not even going to link it below. No, I'm sorry. Not a Forbes article. You can look at a AZ Central. Investigators seized devices from Fountain Hills resident in voter data theft case. December 5th, 2020. And then Forbes, exclusive. FBI. The FBI is investigating voter data theft is in this key 2020 election battleground. Maricopa. So that's Forbes, and that's the Arizona Republic. One article is written by Jen Feifeld and Uriel Garcia in the Arizona Republic, and the other article is written by Thomas Brewster, associate editor at Forbes. H.A. Goodman is not correlating these possible crimes to widespread misconduct that could swing results from our beloved President Biden to the Orange Menace, the nightmare of civilized human beings, Trump. I am not saying that. What I'm saying is that's what Trump's perspective is. Tim, hello, apoplectic. George Rivera Jr. Thank you so very much, as always, George. So any Senate-issued demands for records from an Arizona-style election recount will face strident opposition from Democrats, legal questions, and almost certainly challenges in Pennsylvania's courts as battles over laws rage through swing states and Congress spurred by Trump's falsehoods. Is this an opinion piece? This is supposed to be a news report. Trump's falsehoods? They didn't report WMD in that way. They didn't report, Trump Russia in that way. How are you going to write, and I mean, this is the Associated Press, okay? This is the Associated Press. This is what is supposed to be objective journalism, okay? Hey, I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying, if you can look at an Associated Press article, let's just look at an Associated Press article, and this is very simple to do. Associated Press Steele dossier. So, here. New information adds to questions about Russia. Okay, hold on, here. So, this is the Associated Press. Some questions in Trump-Russia dossier now finding answers. This is a report, not a column. A news report, ladies and gentlemen. A news report. This is not a column. This is supposed to be the objective Associated Press. Look how they don't use the words falsehoods or baseless claims. No one has painted a more vivid or lurid portrait of purported alliance between Donald Trump's presidential campaign and Russia than a quiet, nondescript former British spy named Christopher Steele. Dun, 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 dun. Wow, this is a fantastic, a wonderfully written news report. Steele's once confidential campaign memos were published just before Trump's inauguration, unleashing tales of cavorting ladies, let's just say of the night, and conniving campaign aides in secret sorties with agents of the Kremlin. Can you believe this? Can you believe the difference? Can you believe the difference in journalism and reporting? No one has painted a more vivid or lurid portrait of a purported alliance between Donald Trump's presidential campaign and Russia than a quiet, nondescript former British spy who happened to be paid with money through the DNC and Clinton. Okay? Here, ever since the credibility of these Democratic-funded memos, the so-called Steele dossier has remained the subject of both official investigation and political sniping. What? What? What happened to what happened to baseless claims and falsehoods? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Are you serious? Are you serious about this? Look at the way look at the way this was written. Mixing fact and fiction? At the vortex of all the arguments? What? At the vortex of all the arguments is Steele, often described as a button-down, earnest defender of Western interests. Really? He's often described as this by whom? You should see how Giuliani and Trump describe him. At the vortex of these arguments is Steele, often described as a button-down, earnest defender of Western interests? What are Western interests? Do we have the same interests as France? In many respects, yes. But, I mean, not always. Steele's 17 memos laid out extraordinary detailed narrative of how the Russian government supposedly collaborated with Trump campaign in an elaborate effort to tilt the 2016 presidential contest in his favor. Where is the word baseless and falsehood? Where are the words baseless and falsehood? You will not get that from even the Associated Press. My God almighty. That's why, I mean, like, look, I'm not, there's nothing, like, I'm not a rocket scientist, but I can tell you the difference. I can tell you the difference in reporting between the Associated Press, the AP's journalism of Trump Russia, and the AP's journalism of anything to do with Trump or Trump's claims or allegations or Arizona or any question about any allegations leveled by President Trump. Any allegations leveled by President Trump is viewed as baseless, completely baseless, not the work of an earnest defender of Western interests. I would say Trump is actually an earnest defender of Western. I would say Donald Trump is far greater of a defender or a much more earnest defender of Western interests than Mr. Steele. He was a defender of Democratic Party interests. But if you wanted to talk about a defender of Western interests, that's generally tied to a political viewpoint that is, very much despised nowadays by the left. George Rivera Jr. My wife used to get upset at the MSM, but once I taught her how to observe correctly, she now finds them hilarious. Exactly, George Rivera Jr. I hope that's exactly the way to look at things. D. Lynn, thank you for joining. Thank you for becoming a member. That's exactly the way to look at things. George Rivera Jr. That's what I try to do on this channel. That is what I try to do on this channel. I try to look at things from the vantage point of how amusing they are. Because you have to understand, like, the people who take politics too seriously, like Democrats have control of the narrative, media narrative. They have the media narrative, and they're going to spin it, and it's just something we all have to accept. And I think it's something President Trump and Republicans in general, I'm not a Republican, but Republicans in general have to address. But at the end of the day, it's very amusing because George Rivera Jr., everybody here, you wouldn't communicate to even your worst enemy in this manner. You'd probably be more straightforward. Thank you, George Virginia. Michael Moorhead! I finally got you on a super chat again. I know this ain't much, but you get me through long days. 18 Wheelan, be blessed. God bless you, Michael Moorhead. You are very, very important to commerce and capitalism and wealth and generating wealth, and to the truckers and to the people within the transportation industries in this country who happen to watch this channel. Thank you so very much. Michael Moorhead. We have Hi-Fi Trucker. He watches. Michael, thank you so very, very much. I appreciate that. And whenever I see like an 18-wheeler or a semi-truck, or, I say, okay, that's capitalism at work, or that's people generating wealth. That's business. That's commerce. That's something we need. That's something we need. I never used to bring up the word capitalism when I was on the left, because I wasn't like one of those. I definitely, I would always try to, when I was writing about Bernie Sanders in 2016, he even bristled at the notion of being called a socialist. I never thought that was a good selling point for Bernie Sanders. Then you have, I'm a democratic socialist. Trust me, the democratic socialists that you know on YouTube are the wealthiest people you've ever seen in your life. We have the wealthiest democratic socialists in this country because they're really capitalists. We have $20 million venture capital people, venture capital funded socialists. Corey, thank you. To all the truckers watching, thank you. Michael, thank you again. George Rivera Jr., thank you. As always. But here, Steele 17 memos laid out extraordinary detailed narrative of how the Russian government... What? A novel of fiction would also lay out an extraordinary detailed narrative. Bill Clinton writing on a napkin, oh my goodness, let me just say, okay, well, Trump did this, and then he did that. And then he went into, he went into a Moscow hotel room. Let's see, what did I do? And he did this and that, and this is basically an autobiography. And look at the writing is fantastic. It's extraordinarily detailed. And Associated Press, please go ahead and definitely don't use the words baseless or falsehoods. Thank you. Can you believe that this is happening in our country today? Like this type of... Lauricia, hello. Can you believe that this is happening today? We can go on, but here, let's get back to the Trump ally in Pennsylvania raises audit plan. Okay, so Senator Doug Mastriano, a rising force in Pennsylvania's ultra-conservative circles. So when they talk about AOC, it's never a rising force or a force in the Democratic Party's far left divide. It's just, wow, a rising star. But Senator Doug Mastriano, a rising force in Pennsylvania's ultra-conservative circles, has talked of his desire to bring an Arizona-style audit to Pennsylvania, led by a private briefing Wednesday for Republican senators on his plan. So, in Arizona, the state Senate used its legislative power to take possession of more than 2 million ballots and the machines that counted them, along with the computer data. Mastriano also solicited legal advice from a Philadelphia-based law firm about the Senate Republicans using private money to finance consultants and lawyers. The law firm's response letter dated Tuesday was obtained by the Associated Press. How was it obtained by the Associated Press? In the letter, law firm discussed the legality of using money from a private nonprofit organization to pay for expenses vendors, including some, as part of an oversight investigation. While we cannot predict how the Pennsylvania Supreme Court would decide on the issue, why would the Supreme Court decide on what legislation goes, like, what is unconstitutional about the Supreme Court of the country has already stated that federal laws pertaining to protecting or restricting voters or protecting the integrity of results, depending on how you look at it, the Supreme Court already ruled last week. They already ruled last week that Georgia's laws were constitutional. They already ruled last week that Georgia's laws were constitutional. So what's the problem? What on earth is the problem? So Mastriano, who chairs the letter, said, quote, the purpose of the investigation is to develop legislation which will enhance voter participation and election integrity. Well, it's not necessarily voter participation, but it is election integrity. Mastriano did not return phone calls. In a phone call Friday, by the way, did the Associated Press ever try to reach out to Christopher Steele? Did Christopher Steele not ever return phone calls? I don't know about that. In a phone call Friday, and the AP used to be the last bastion of unbiased, like Reuters, the Associated Press. They were simply, I don't know if they have opinion pieces now, but I don't know if they were always, if they always had columns or op-eds. They're supposed to be completely objective. They were generally completely objective. Generally, they were completely objective. So I have no clue. Like, and this is the problem. This is what happens. Because historically objective news organizations report the news in such a biased, slanted, one-sided manner, okay? Because you have news organizations that report the news in the most slanted and biased manner, you have people who look at who look at the news and say, hey, wait a second, the Associated Press is saying the exact same thing as CNN. CNN is saying the exact same thing as The Atlantic. So therefore, Trump must be the beginning of the apocalypse. He must have actually worked with Russia, because everyone is either suspicious or accusing him of doing so. And nothing could be further from the truth. It's not that Trump worked with Russia. It's that media is in the tank of one narrative that coincidentally happens to always benefit one political side. Media is in the tank coincidentally of a narrative or of a political vantage point that always benefits one political side. And we know that political side is the Democratic Party. That's why Mitt Romney and Nebraska Senator and Kinzinger and Cheney and the Lincoln Project and Bill Kristol and his organization, the Bush-era Republicans, they're in a political purgatory, a very lucrative political purgatory. They're not Democrats. They'll never be accepted by Democrats ever. The moment that they're actually adversaries, they will be treated in a worse manner than Trump, because at least Trump fell for certain traps, numerous traps, last year in particular, but at least he fights back, and he is an actual respected foe in terms of his influence. That's why the Democratic Party respects political influence. That's why they don't respect Bernie Sanders, because Bernie Sanders had the allure of political influence. Then he just caved within a moment, within a nanosecond, and then became part of the racket. Trump fights back. He does not care about their indignation. He does not care about their condemnation. He just doesn't care at all, which I think actually I think you should care a little bit about certain things he says. I think that if he toned down his rhetoric, that would be good to an extent, very good. But they would treat Mitt Romney, they'd find the Romney dossier. Oh, Mittens, you've been a bad person. Mittens Romney, Chapter 1. Mittens took his dog, placed his dog on top of his car, and took a road trip to a location that is frequented by, honey, help me fill this out. It's political Mad Libs that we're going to utilize to investigate our direct political rivals. Yeah, he took a road trip to a secret location in Utah, frequented by certain Russian operatives that Eric Swalwell might know, if you know what I mean. And that's what they would do. Thank you, Paul. That's what they would do. They would just simply find a dossier, pass the dossier. They would simply find the dossier or create one on Romney. I mean, that's the thing that, like, Romney doesn't, I don't think any of these never-Trumpers understand that they're the ones who would be the villains portrayed within dossiers. They don't get that. They're like, oh, it doesn't affect me. But it definitely, like, they went after Bernie Sanders and then Trump, Tulsi Gabbard, Jill Stein, anyone that they went after, really anyone that, I'm missing some people, but anyone that doesn't give blind obedience and allegiance. And we're not even getting to the voters. You saw what Biden said. But you look at, like, if you look at the way, that journalism is done, there's no more journalism. There's no more journalism, really. It's public relations. And it's public relations that's slanted towards one viewpoint. Christopher Steele is written about in the Associated Press in the most charming and elegant manner. The fact that he was simply a mercenary that helped plunge this country into a tremendous, tremendous political divide. Okay? This is what that type of mercenary does. That's completely overlooked. He's an earnest defender of Western interests. You haven't even defined Western interests. In many respects, Trump is a far greater defender and more earnest. A lot more earnest. Because when he does actually defend Western interests, it's a big problem. It's always a big problem whenever Trump does anything. Bray! Bill, wait for Cabinet Clinton. Bray, I want to thank you. Bray, thank you so very much. I just want to thank you so much, Bray. I can't thank you enough. So, Bray, thank you so very much. So you look, ladies and gentlemen, and it's like President Trump, I mean, I don't want to pat myself on the back, but He needs better advisors, and I think that he needs to maybe not necessarily somebody like me, but somebody who will give him advice like, okay, you know what? Be strategic in what you say. Make sure that you don't fuel Democrats by giving them added fuel Democrats through indignation. You can be yourself, and Democrats can view you as divisive, and that's fine. But don't say or do anything, or don't say anything, whether it's on the new social media platform or any platform. Don't say anything that will allow Democrats to ignore the numerous problems we face in this country that we didn't face during Trump's tenure. Fact. We had record low unemployment. Now we have a stagnant economy with unemployment increasing. How is unemployment increasing in July of this year when life is pretty much back to normal? And in terms of life being back to normal, good luck. Good luck to our beloved state officials and legislators and politicians, the wonderful people who care about us so much. Good luck in trying to impose the same types of restrictions again. I don't think politically that's going to be a good thing. Economically, it's, you know what? Democrats have gleefully tanked society. CMW! Jeffrey Shalom. CMW, thank you so very, very much. CMW, thank you so much. I'm trying to go ahead, CMW, and do these live streams at like 3 p.m., 2 p.m. Pacific every single day. So every single day I'll have a live stream, either 2 p.m., 3 p.m., or 4 p.m. Pacific. It'll be midday, and I just want to thank you so very much, CMW. Your support via Super Chat, ladies and gentlemen, really helps me do what I do. You know, CMW and Michael, I'll get to you in a second. Thank you so very much, Michael. I don't have $20 million in venture capital funding. I'm not a democratic socialist who gets $20 million in venture capital funding, okay? There's so many bizarre labels or pundits who call themselves socialists or democratic socialists that they get $20 million in venture capital funding. I am really I'm a viewer-funded channel. I really am. And CMW, I just thank you for, helping me tremendously do what I do. Thank you, CMW. Michael Moorhead. CNN, New York Times, etc. They think of themselves like high priests writing scripture, when in fact it comes from a cloud. Laundered, exactly. Yes, Paul, hello. Yes. I agree with you, Michael, on that. I agree with you. Anita! Thanks for being... Anita, Eddie! Anita, thank you so very much. Anita and Michael and CMW. What happened to journalism? Anita, thank you so very, very much. What happened to the Associated Press? Why are they so willing? Why are journalists so willing to entertain the baseless allegations leveled against Trump while at the same time unable to reconnect? Okay, it's successful. Am I back? Am I back, ladies and gentlemen? Can you hear me, ladies and gentlemen? Anita Eddie, thank you so very, very much. Thank you, Anita. Thank you so much. Tree Climber! I'll chip in for Orkin too. The Tree Climber! Thank you, Tree Climber. Thank you. Tammy Brennan, hello. Thank you for always watching the uploads. Tammy, thank you. Tree Climber, Anita, CMW, Michael, thank you so much. So, there was a hill, there was a, okay, so one third of Americans, okay, this is the Hill. 1/3 of Americans believe our beloved algorithm, beloved president was, oh, how shall we say, victorious only because of, oh, the interesting concept, which is completely baseless. See, this is what happens when I'm dealing with, I don't have much intelligence, but I'm trying to outsmart the AI. So I'm trying to outsmart. So 1/3 of Americans believe our beloved president was absolutely victorious only because of potential and possible misconduct poll. This is a Hill article. So when you have 1/3 of all Americans and you have like something like 70% of Republicans, roughly 1/3 of Americans believe our beloved President Biden's amazing, historic, and really monumental and beautiful victory was the result of potential misconduct, according to a new Monmouth University poll. So when you have 1/3 of all Americans, and that's despite endless media push saying everything's fine. How dare you? That's what they keep doing. It's like, it's not really a long-term strategy. You know, the notion that Trumpism or Trump is the scourge of the century is rooted in one's sensibilities. It's not rooted in reality or fact. This is the way conservatives who don't like Trump and every liberal thinks of Trump. We almost lost this country to a fringe ideology perpetuated by a monster. That's not true at all. It's not true at all. That's why 74 million Americans have critical thinking skills. They don't care about the sensibilities. Like, we get, if you like Trump, you get that his personality is an act. Oftentimes, his public persona is an act. CMW, thank you. Anita, thank you. His public persona, like Clinton had a public and private persona, okay? His persona is part of an act. It's not when he calls people certain names and then media says, oh my God, look what he did. Oh my God, can you believe this? Can you believe what he's doing? Can you believe what Trump is doing? It's like they feign indignation to create something that doesn't exist. They moan and cry about how public discourse has dissolved into, these horrible types of arguments. And they're the ones who've leveled practically all of media against one man. And they have not been fair or objective or apolitical or nonpartisan. One would have to think that Trump lives in a world where media is completely nonpartisan. You would have to believe that media, that the Washington Post, the New York Times, even the Associated Press, is nonpartisan. They're completely apolitical. You would have to believe that they're completely objective, unbiased, and they're making they're making allegations or they're speculating against Trump because they don't really want to accuse him of Trump Russia. Don't you understand? But they're just reporting on it because that's what's the news. So that's not the reality. Ramon, thank you. Ramon Fernandez Guzman, thank you so very much. Mr. Guzman, thank you. Thank you for watching, and I appreciate you watching very much. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for watching. One would have to think, see, this is the thing. Even Babe Ruth, I love Babe Ruth, okay? But even Babe Ruth had his image cultivated to an extent by sports writers. Sports writers loved Babe Ruth. They would actually party with him. And if there was a night out that affected his performance or whatever, which probably never really happened, that his performance on the field would be affected, but sometimes, very rarely, it was. The sports writers wouldn't talk about it, okay? Journalists protected FDR, okay? Because of his medical condition, they didn't take pictures or report, in the same manner they would with somebody they didn't like, okay? You can look at journalism. You can look at, if journalists don't like you, your public image is going to be affected. You can look at William Randolph Hearst and the types of stories that his newspapers would publish and the types of scandals that his newspapers would help foment. It's like when people say that Trump is divisive and he's polarizing, to an extent he is, but the reaction to Trump, the reaction, the indignation, the sensibilities surrounding the sensibilities of people who never liked him even from 2015, that plays a huge role in how Trump is viewed throughout the country. Also, you have it could be the Arizona recount. You have negative news story after negative news story after negative news story. And then they say, a poll was conducted. And, 53% of independents don't think the Arizona recount should take place. You just had 3 months worth of negative news stories. Every journalist out there was trying to disparage or undermine or find something they could to criticize the Arizona recount. Because when a possible discrepancy report is released, and there will almost certainly be discrepancies, whether it gives the state to the Orange Menace, who knows? We'll still have President Biden for 4 years. We'll still have President Biden for 4 years. But, and 2024 is the only chance President Trump has. I mean, that anyone who tells you differently, that's not accurate. But this would be a political disaster for Democrats if state after state conducts recounts or investigations and finds even discrepancies that might not even give it to the Orange Menace. But any discrepancies at all. I mean, New Hampshire, there were discrepancies. They just said, oh, well, no, who cares? They didn't care at all. But I think that, ladies and gentlemen, what President Trump needs to do is, if he finds discrepancies, you have to communicate them. So Fly to Joe Rogan's studio, President Trump, and talk about the Arizona results. My God almighty. Go and do a video like a Zoom meeting with Brandon Tatum or Anthony Bryan Logan or Tim Pool. It would be viewed 20 to 30 million times. And you would preempt any attempt at silencing your voice. But see, again, he's not like, President Trump is not surrounded by President Trump. He needs to think outside of the box. You know, he's not surrounded by people who think outside of the box, unfortunately. I think actually, they try to say Kushner and Ivanka Trump, and no, I think they're very intelligent. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about just political advisors. You cannot, if you're Trump, you cannot look at traditional polls or because the data is influenced by media coverage. Media coverage influences poll numbers. Media coverage has a direct influence on poll numbers. The fact that Trump is the most popular Republican president since Abraham Lincoln, the fact that he's more popular than Reagan is a testament to his accomplishments, who he is. That's an achievement in and of itself. He shouldn't be able to claim that title because of the nonstop 24/7 negative media coverage. So he has to think outside of the box. That's all I'm saying. He needs to think outside of the box. He can't, the moment that, let's say Arizona comes out next week with a report and there are discrepancies. He can't say, well, you know what? Who knows? I don't know. But he has to communicate. He can't just communicate it in a press release and leave it at that. Whatever he says, and he should say something that doesn't, I don't know. I'm trying to think see, Democrats run off of indignation, so anything he says, they're going to be indignant. But whatever he says, he needs to say and communicate his thoughts within a venue that millions upon millions will be able to see or hear. He has to go on, Ben Shapiro. He should speak with Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro might not love Trump, but I believe he voted for Trump. He should go on, let me tell you something. I know you think that I've completely lost it. I think he should go on CNN and MSNBC, state his case, and if they have the most apoplectic journalists going after him, simply, if he can do that, withstand the rude journalist and try to state his case. See, President Trump is a human being. They did him wrong for 4 years, and now he cannot physically stand them. He cannot stand them. Like when he was going back and forth with the White House press corps, that served to help them. It didn't help President Trump. The best way to go after people, the best way to defend yourself from people who just want to harm you is through a calm manner, through a calm and deliberate, strategic manner, not emotion. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much. I will be back in about, I'll be back in about an hour with an upload. So hit subscribe to this channel. Ladies and gentlemen, CMW, everyone here, thank you so very, very, very much. Paul, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, you're all wonderful. I'm going to be doing these, either at 2 p.m., 3 p.m., or 4 p.m. every single day from here on out. And I just thank you so very much. Check the upload in about 1 hour, everybody. Thanks so much, everybody. God bless. Have a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful day. I'll see you tomorrow on the live stream at the same bat time, same bat channel, and I'll see you tomorrow, everybody. Check out the upload on H.A. Goodman's other channel right now, and on